Okay, what we're going to be doing today is lesson 4.3, which is finding the x and the y intercepts. Now, if you remember in lesson 4.1, we learned about the coordinate plane and the x and the y axis. So this is my x-axis here. This would be my y-axis going straight up and down. And then 4.2, we learned about function form, which means y by itself on one side. So we'd get an equation that looks like this, okay? And then I would use a table of values to graph, and I would do -2, 0, and 2. So that way I could graph a line through my coordinate plane. Now, in lesson 4.3, we're going to be finding a shortcut, basically, to graph an equation like this without having to do an x and y chart or an x and y table, okay? Those are called the x and the y intercepts. What those are is the x-intercept is exactly where the line crosses your x-axis, and the y-intercept is exactly where your line crosses the y-axis. So no matter what, I know that when I have an x-axis, I'm going to have an x, or I'm going to have a number in for x, and my y value will always be 0. Then when I have a y-intercept, my 0 will always be at x, and I will always have a number in for y. And I'll show you how to do that and how to find these, okay? So first of all, they want us to find the intercepts, which means I need to find an x-intercept and I need to find a y-intercept. So what I want to do in order to do that, anytime you want to find the x-intercept, plug in 0 for y. Okay, same goes for y. Whenever I want to find the y-intercept, you plug in 0 for x. Now, make sure that you do not get these mixed up, because a lot of times people go, oh, find the x-intercept, plug in 0 for x. No, you want to plug it in for y. So I want to plug in the opposite. So let's find our x-intercept first. So I'm going to rewrite my equation, 2x plus 3, and instead of having a y, I'm going to plug in a 0 equals 6. Well, what happens there? What's 3 times 0? 0. So I can just cancel it out or cross it out because it's no longer a factor. And I get 2x equals 6. Divide by 2, and my x-intercept is 3. That means wherever my line crosses my x-axis is at the 3. My line will go through my x-axis directly at the 3. Okay, so I automatically know when my x is 3, then what did I plug in for y? 0, so I know that value has to be 0. So this is my x-intercept. Now let's use this same equation here and let's find my y-intercept. So what I want to do is I just want to plug in a 0 for x. So I write my equation, 2 times 0 plus 3y is equal to 6. Well, what happens to 2 times 0? It just goes away, and I get 3y equals 6. So I divide by 3 on both sides, and I get y is equal to 2. Okay, so that means my y-intercept, or where that line is going to cross the y-axis, is at a positive 2. So I want to write it as an ordered pair. So my y-intercept, what did I plug in for x? 0. And then what did I get for y? 2. No matter what, anytime you find your x and y-intercept, the opposite value will be 0. If I'm finding my x-intercept, my y value is 0. When I find my y-intercept, my x value is 0. Okay, so let's do this next one. All right, find the x-intercept first. So I'm going to do 4x plus 3 times 0 equals 12. That cancels out there basically, and I divide each side by 4 because I want to get x by itself, and I get x equals 3. So I know my x-intercept is 3. And I would prefer you to write this as an ordered pair. So I have a 3 for my x value, 0 for my y value. So this is my x-intercept. Okay, now let's find the y-intercept. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for x. Cancel this out. I know I need to divide both sides by 3, and I get y equals 4. So I write it as an ordered pair. What did I plug in for x? 0. And what did I get for y? 4. So here is my x and my y intercepts. Okay? So that's how you find the intercepts. So now let's use those intercepts to graph. So before I can graph anything, I've got to find my x and y intercepts. Okay, so let's find the x-intercept first. So I'm going to plug in a 0 for y. So I do 3.5x plus 7 times 0 equals 14. Cancel this out, okay, because 7 times 0 is 0. Then I divide both sides by 3.5. And what I'm going to get is x is equal to 4. So I know my x-intercept, let's write it as an ordered pair, is going to be 4, 0. All right, now let's find the y-intercept. I'm going to plug in a 0 for x, so I'm going to do 3.5 times 0 plus 7y is equal to 14. So that cancels out. I need to divide both sides by 7, and I get y is equal to 2. So let's write that as an ordered pair. I plugged in 0 for x, and I got 2 for y. Now, they want me to use the points that I've just found to graph my line. I can always use an x and y intercept to graph. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out my graph paper here. Okay? I'm going to make my graph. Label it. I'm just going to go up to 5. And you don't even need to go to the same on the negative, because I realize I've got no negative value, so there's not going to be anything on my chart in the bottom part of my graph. Okay, so let's graph each of these lines. Remember, the x-intercept will always be on the x-axis. The y-intercept will always be on the y-axis. So I found that my x-intercept was 4. So if I wrote it as an ordered pair, which is what I want you guys to do, then you know, okay, I can go to my point 4, go over 4, and since my y is 0, I stay right here. Remember, x equaled 4. I went to the x-axis, and I went directly to the 4. Okay, now let's find the y-intercept. My y-intercept was at 2. So my x value is 0, so I stay right here, my origin, and I just go up to the 2. So now that I have my 2 points, I can draw a line right through them, because all I need are 2 points in order to draw a line. And that's how we use our x and y intercepts to graph. So it takes a little less time than actually graphing to make an x and y chart, which is what we learned how to do in 4.2. Okay? So let's do the next problem here. Same exact thing. They want me to find the x and y intercepts and then graph this problem. So let's plug in a 0 for y first. So I have x minus 2 equals 4 times 0. Well, can I just cancel out the 4 times 0 now? No, because then there would be nothing left over here. What is 4 times 0? 0. X minus 2. How do I know what x is equal to? You have to add 2 to both sides to get it by itself and say x is equal to 2. Now let's write that as an ordered pair. 2, 0. Don't forget to plug in the 0 for y. And now I'm going to find my y-intercept. I'm going to plug in 0 for x. What's 0 minus 2? Negative 2. Then I got to get y by itself, so I divide both sides by 4. What is y going to be? Negative 1/2. You say, oh my goodness, we have a fraction. That's okay. We can deal with a fraction. I can make a graph that has a fraction in it. What did I plug in for x? 0. My y value is negative 1/2. Okay, so let's use both of these x and y axes to graph. Okay, since I have a fraction, I'm actually going to take my graph, all right, and I'm going to make each line a half. So like this would be 1/2, 1, 1 1/2, 2. Now, if you wanted to, you don't even have to write the halves. You can just go up to 2. And then remember, whatever you go up to on your x-axis, you also have to do on your y-axis, and vice versa. So if the first line is 1/2 here, the first line here has to be 1/2. Then 1.5, I'm sorry, then 1, then 1.5. Okay, then I've got -1/2, -1, -1.5, -1/2, -1, -1.5. This needs to go to 2. -2 and -2. Okay, so let's plot our x and y intercepts. Our x-intercept was at 2, 0, so I go over to the 2 on the x-axis, and my y-axis, or my y-intercept was -1/2, so I go to 0, -1/2. Plot my points, then draw my line through them, and I have my x and y intercepts that I use to graph. Okay, so this is how you would do the x and the y intercepts.